Hey there, quilting friends. So I'm out in the quilting cottage today. I wanted to show you a couple of products, talk about a cute little project that I'd like to do in time for Easter, and maybe work with some of these scraps. So if it's something that you think you might be interested in, a little project that you can give as a gift in time for Easter, then let's stick around and find out what's next. So I'm really glad that you decided to stick around and check out the video. So here are a few things that you may not know about me. I am a scrap quilter. I have 3 books on scrap quilting, the All Scrapped Out series. I'm also a template manufacturer, and we have a ton of templates for sewing, quilting, English paper piecing, just about anything that you could want to do. I wanted to show you a few of the little templates today. Look through this bin of scraps that I have here and kind of work on a project that I think, just a cute little small project that you might be able to give as a gift for Easter, which is right around the corner. So let me show you a couple of the things that I have. So I have this little guy. This is a 3-inch version of our nested petal template, and this one's called the Petal Pal. Our Petal Pal template comes with a 1-inch circle in addition to the petal itself. I also have a series of circle templates. And one of my templates here, I have them 1.5 inches. I also have 2 inches. And then I have a big guy over here that is 2.5. So I thought today I would show you a little project made from scraps from my bin, and also using a few of these circle and petal templates so we could see what we could make. So in this bin are a lot of the scraps that I have that are bigger pieces, little leftover pieces from fabric company projects, something that used to be a fat quarter that's no longer a fat quarter, but they're definitely not strips. And I keep them around to challenge myself to use those fabrics when I want to do something small or do a cute little project for a video. Let me show you what I have in mind. So a couple years ago, I actually used these templates and I created this cute little bunny mug rug for Easter time. I like to keep these next to me on the dresser by my bed, because a lot of times at night I'll take a glass of water, and then in the morning my husband likes to bring me my first cup of coffee, which is very sweet. Sometimes, you know, as often happens, he'll trip over a pair of my shoes, wind up with a couple drips of coffee on the bed or on the floor. It's not always happening that way, but sometimes it happens. And then he takes a messy cup and he sets it on my dresser. So I like having a mug rug there to catch all those little drips. And as you can see on this one, it's caught quite a few. So a couple years, this one's been used. It's been sitting on my dresser. It needs to be cleaned. And it brought in mind, with Easter right around the corner, that maybe I would make a new one of these. So let me show you how I created this little guy. So I'm going to use a background piece of fabric. I actually used a backing piece of fabric. They're both about the same. And I have a little bit of binding here, which I can show you how to do this by machine. We'll do it with a little bit of cheater method since it's such a small project. I used my 2.5-inch circle for the bunny's bottom. I used my 1.5-inch circle for the bunny's head, and the Petal Pal keychain for the bunny's ears. And then you can see he has a little tail right here. That is the 1-inch circle that comes with the Petal Pal. And so I'm able to cut these things out and put them down. I'll show you how I made the little bunny's tail. I'll also show you how I bent his little ear here, and he's got a little different color right inside his little ear. And how did I do that? I don't know. Using just these templates. So I dug around in my box and I found some fabrics to use. And what I thought, with all these little fabrics that were in here, I did find a piece of leftover linen. So I cut myself a piece of linen for the background. And then I thought, you know what? I found this cute little green fabric here. It's got like little raindrops on it, but I thought it kind of looked like grass. And so I thought, why not use that as a little bit on the bottom? So on this little guy right here, I did 1 piece of fabric, but I could actually put 2 pieces of fabric together and make some grass on the bottom of my little guy right there. And then I found a little bit of fabric for the bunny's tail, and I dug around and found a little bit of fabric for the bunny's ear. Here's my fabric for the bunny's body. I thought that was really cute for his little ear, inside of the ear and the outside of the ear. And I cut up used of these little fabrics, and let me show you how I'm going to put this guy together. So I've grabbed all the templates that I need for this project. I'm going to set these aside. I definitely want to cut the project a little bigger because I want to be able to quilt it. So normally it's 6 by 9 when it's done. So I'm going to cut my background piece, usually 7 by 10 inches, with my little ruler right here from Creative Grids. But I'm going to add that piece of green to the bottom. So instead of cutting the whole thing 7 by 10 inches, I'm definitely going to cut this 10 inches wide, but I'm going to cut my linen piece, I don't know, slightly smaller, say about 5 inches tall and then 10 inches wide. And then I'm going to add a 2.5 inch strip of my green to the bottom of this block. So now that my background is complete, I'm 10 inches wide. I need to be 7 inches tall. I'm going to take the extra off of the linen part. So let me trim this down. We'll move everything out of the way, and we'll go ahead and set the ruler at the 7-inch mark. It's not going to take a lot off of this linen side, just a little tiny bit, just this tiny strip. Now I'm going to gather up all the pieces that I need for each of my body parts. So I've got the 2 circles for the head and the butt of the bunny and the tail. And here are the parts for my ears. And I just want to make sure that my little petal ear is going to fit, and I'm going to be able to get 2 ears. What I've done with all of my pieces is I've treated them with this great fabric spray, Terial Magic. And what Terial Magic does is it is a fabric stabilizer. So I'm actually going to use these little pieces here, and I'm going to cut out circles, and then I'm going to lay these circles down on this piece. And what I want to do is stitch all the way around a circle, and you can't really do that without stabilizing the base fabric and the top fabric, because otherwise the stitches actually won't make it all the way around without puckering. So what I've done is I've sprayed this product onto my pieces, and I have pressed them so that they're nice and flat and stiff. And if you can see here, this is now a very stiffened fabric. It gets much, much stiffer than it would with a starch product. It's actually almost paper-like at this point. So it's going to make it a little tougher to fold and cut a little bit, but the cut's going to be nice and crisp. It's going to be not going to fray because all of the fibers are going to be held in. And I'm going to be able to place it right here on my project. Just use a couple drops of water-soluble glue. We're going to hold it down and we're going to stitch it. Now that I have my pieces treated, I'm just going to set my little bunny tail aside there for just 1 second. I'm not going to worry about that, and I'm going to concentrate on my little head and my little tush. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my fabric and I'm going to fold it in half. This reason is because my little keychain templates that you've seen here have a little crosshair line printed on the ruler, and I want to cut a circle. Circles, you really can't cut all the way around a circle with a rotary cutter, but what I can do is I can cut a half circle, and I can also cut a quarter circle. So I've taken my fabric and folded it. See, there's the fold, and then I'm going to fold it again. And what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to place it underneath my ruler right here, and I'm going to place the folded edge, one on this line and one on this line with the little corner right there, and I'm going to press it down. I've also got my little tape on the bottom to keep this from sliding. I'm going to press it down. I'm going to take my rotary cutter and just very lightly go around the outside of my circle. And then I'm going to open it up, and voila, and it's perfect. And so now I'm going to put my little bunny's head right there on my fabric, and that's the start of my bunny. So I'm going to repeat this process with my bigger circle, and I'm going to do my bunny butt. So I'm going to again fold my fabric in half. I'm just going to finger press it, and then I'm going to fold it in half again. See that? And finger press it. And then one of my folds is here, one is here, so I'm going to turn it and put it right there in that crosshair. One fold on one line and one fold on the other line. And then I'm going to take my rotary cutter, and this one should work better because it's a bigger circle. And I'm just going to go around very lightly on the circle, and then voila, I'm going to open it up and it's going to be a circle. And there is my little bunny butt and my little bunny head. Okay, I've taken the time to cut my little bunny fluffy tail. And what am I going to do with my little bunny fluffy tail? Well, I can set it right here on my bunny butt. And yeah, it looks like a little tail, but wouldn't it be cuter if it looked nice and fluffy? So I'm going to take my little bunny tail, I'm going to fold it back up. And then what I'm going to do is cut some tiny little V's out of the end of the bunny tail. So just little tiny snips right along the tail. And you don't have to be super perfect with it. Just cut a couple little snips. So I snipped off the little point at the end. I'm snipping off a couple little bites right there and another little V at the end, and that's what I wind up with. And then when you open it up, you get a little fluffy bunny tail. And I'm going to go ahead and just give these guys a little press to get rid of my little finger press and bring them back over. There we go. They're all freshly pressed. That's about what they're going to look like on my little bunny. I'll bring my bunny down into the grass. I don't know why I didn't do that. All right. I think I put my little bunny up under here. Now, I told you we're going to do something a little bit different with the bunny's ears. Now, if you look here on my sample, you can see one of my bunny's ears gets tucked underneath the head, and the other of my bunny's ears comes up, and it's like two-tone. So that's where my pink is going to come in handy. So I'm going to do something real quick with my second ear that I'm not going to do with the first ear. So the first thing is, let's treat my gray fabric with Terial Magic. I'm going to take one side of this and cut it. And I will now have enough for one ear and enough for another ear. So I'm going to take this side and I'm going to go ahead and treat it the same way I did with this other fabric so I can make my little bunny ear. So let me go do that and then I'll come back. All right, time to cut my little bunny ear. All right. So what I'm going to do, this is a little rotary mat. It's not very big. This one is called the Honey Sew rotary mat. It looks like it's by OmniGrid, but it has a little rotary bottom on it and little finger holes here, and I'm just going to make sure that I set, when I'm cutting around a curve and coming back on myself, I always want to run my rotary cutter away from myself. So I brought this little rotary mat, and I'm going to put my little petal down, turn my rotary mat, and I'm going to cut my little ear out just like so, pull that away, and then I'm going to turn my rotary mat and cut the other side of the ear, so I am always going in the opposite direction. You're going to want to do that all the time because then I didn't cut my hands at all. Now let's look at what I'm going to do with my other bunny ear. I'm going to use a product called Steam-A-Seam 2. Now, I don't know if you've ever used Steam-A-Seam 2. This is a really great product. It uses steam, and let's cut a little piece of this so that we can work on our project. We don't need a lot. We only need enough to cover this little guy and make the ear. So I'm actually going to cut something slightly smaller with my serrated scissors here, just checking to make sure that I can get my whole piece of fabric out and actually also my bunny ear. And I'm just going to trim on the other side of this because I don't need a lot of fabric. I don't need a lot, and I also want to make sure that it doesn't go bigger than the piece of fabric that I have here because it is a fusible product. So I want to make sure that I have space all the way around. Here's the cool thing about Steam-A-Seam 2. It is double-sided. So when I peel the paper off, it actually is sticky, just like fusible. So this is the part that's not sticky, that's the sticky part. So I'm going to remove the paper and I'm actually going to place it down on the back side of my bunny ear. just like so. And now it is completely stuck. You can use a brayer, like I'm going to use here, to get it stuck all the way down. Okay, and now it's stuck. I'm going to use a little pin to score it. I'm going to score it so that I can tear it off without touching the corners, because I don't want to mess up the adhesion properties of the Terial Magic. So I'm just going to tear it up, just like so. There it is, right there. And you can see the sticky on it. And now I'm going to take my pink fabric that I'm going to use for the inside of the bunny ear, and I'm just going to lay it down on the other side of that fabric, just like so. Nice. And then I'm going to take it over and press it with steam.
Now at this point in the video, I realized I forgot to record pressing the whole thing with steam, which adhered both pieces of fabric together. It made it pink on one side and black on the other. And then I didn't show you exactly how I cut it. Well, I cut it exactly the same way that I cut the other ear. So you can see that I've already begun to fold the ear here, but I left out that part. So let's get to the sewing.
Before I start sewing, I'm going to locate every place that I know I want my bunny stuff. So I know I'm going to use my little water-soluble handy-dandy Sew Line quilt pen. And I'm going to put a little bit of glue right on the back of the bunny tail and locate it right in the area of the body that I think it should go. Right about there. And then I'm going to take and locate all my bunny parts right like so over here on the left hand side, which is where I'm going to put my coffee. I'm going to tack my little bunny head right underneath my little bunny butt, and my little ear right underneath that, like so. And then I'm going to take my other little ear and tuck it right behind Bunny's head. And that is going to be my little bunny mug rug. So now that I know where these pieces are going, I'm going to go ahead and tack them down with a little bit of water-soluble glue. Just enough to hold them in place so I know where I want them to be. Like so. And then we'll lift the little bunny head and we'll put a little glue on her, just like so. And then my little bunny ears. Shift it a little bit. You don't need a lot. I'm probably putting on just a little too much, but I don't want it to go anywhere. And then if you want, you can tack the back of the ear here and see if you can get it to stay down, so it'll tack down a little bit. And then I'll put my little bunny other part of my ear right there, just enough to get it to hold it in place so when I'm moving it around I don't shift it any. Now that I have that done, I'm going to go ahead and prepare my sewing machine for a little zigzag stitch, and we're going to stitch around the outside of the bunny. So before using my sewing machine, I went ahead and changed my throat plate from a single hole throat plate to a wide throat plate and changed my foot so I can accommodate a zigzag stitch. And then I'm going to touch the button to turn on the zigzag stitch on my sewing machine so that I have that done. And I'm going to stitch a couple of stitches forward so I can see what that zigzag looks like. And then I'm going to cut and check a look at it. I took the time to change the color of my thread and also all the parts I just talked about. So I can see that this zigzag, which hopefully you can see, is a little bit wide and a little bit far apart than what I want for my piece. So I'm actually going to take my knob and I'm going to turn my length of my stitch down a little bit.
So my machine automatically defaults to a 2.8 width, and I'm going to turn that down to about a 2.2 just to give it a try. And then my machine length is set at 1.5 by default. I'm going to put that down to about 1.0. And then I'm going to try by stitching another little set of stitches right next to the other one and see the difference.
Let's take a look at our sample. Oh, so you see the difference in the stitches? My stitches apart are now much, much closer together, and the width of the stitch is much narrower than it was before. And I like this. I think this will hold the edges of the fabric a whole lot better. So let's stay with this, and we'll go ahead and we'll stitch our parts down. I like to start with all the parts that are on the top layer first. So I'm going to hit the tail first, and all I'm going to do, now all these are stiffened, I'm just going to hit and just stitch around the outside of the tail. No big deal, just stitching and turning, stitching and turning. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just going to keep turning and stitching my circle. And I don't even really have to catch everything. I just need to make sure that I've stitched it all down. And I'm just going to spin all the way around and see what happens. And I've stitched my tail all the way down. Now I'm going to do the same thing, no puckering or anything. I'm going to do the same thing with my little bunny butt.
So you can see that I have no puckering. With all that Terial magic, I'm able to just turn the project right underneath the foot without much trouble at all. I don't even have to stop and lift my presser foot at all. If you go nice and slow. If you go too fast, you're going to wind up getting off center a little bit. But you just start at one part of the circle and you go around to the other part of the circle. I'm going to meet back in the middle, and then I'm going to do the exact same thing with my bunny's head. And then we'll get back to the rest of it when we get to the bunny's ear, because that's where it can get a little bit tricky. Okay, I'm going to start my sewing right at the base of the bunny's ear. I've already sewn around the head, so I'm going to take it all the way down to the tip of the ear. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that that inside needle, as it goes to the inside, goes down into the tip. So I'm setting my machine on needle down. And I'm just making sure that the needle is down in the tip of the ear, lifted the presser foot, and go back and check it. And then once I know it's there, I can go clip and get it to zigzag down the other side of the ear. So I want to catch that bunny ear right at the tip. Now, if you miss the tip by a little bit, it's not that big of a deal. And then you just sew down to the bottom of the head and cut the threads. Now I'm going to start on the last ear, and I want to start over by that bunny's head. I'm going to go down and over the point of the ear, up the side, back over the fold, just catching that point right at where the needle stops in that one edge, because I definitely want to catch the fold over the bunny's ear. So I'm going to sew up, stop at the point, and then I'm going to lift my presser foot and turn it and come down the point where that bunny's ear is folded over, stopping again at the point. Once I get the needle down in the point, I'm going to stop again, and then I'm going to turn and stitch up the other side. Now I'm going to stitch the whole bunny's ear all the way around the outside, and then I'm going to go back and catch that one little flap that I didn't catch the first time. So now I'm back over at the sewing machine, and I've got my 3 layers of quilt sandwich, my back batting and top, and I want to show you this is a perfect way to practice your quilting stitches. So what I've done is a little bit of echo quilting right around the bunny. This is my sample from before, and I just did 1 or 2 little echoes around. And so you go just about 1/4 of an inch away from the design, and you do that a couple of times, 1/4 inch away. And then on the right hand side, I did some squiggle lines. So great way to try out and practice your quilting.
There we go. Now our bunny is all nice and quilted, and we're ready to take it over, trim it down to 6x9, and put our binding on. All right, gang. So you can see everything has been nice and trimmed to size. It's about the same size as my bunny, my first one. I made it just a tiny little bit bigger because I wanted to keep all the little stitching around the outside and this cute little bottom. So I got my little binding strip, and I'm about to do something to put my binding on that I don't normally do. Normally, I would put my binding strip together, and then when I got to the end, I would sew at a 45-degree angle in order to put my binding on. But this time, well, I'm not going to do that at all. I'm actually going to clip off my selvage, and I'm going to do a tuck method, which is very popular on the internet, not so much with me, but since this is just a mug rug, I think it's okay to do it. So before I add my binding, which I'm going to add to the back of the quilt instead of the front of the quilt. So this is just a little bit different than how I would normally do it. And before I do that, I'm actually going to tuck my binding strip in by about 1/4 of an inch, just like so, just to cover that little edge right there so that it's all tucked in. You can do it a little bit more if you wanted to, but that's about all it needs to be. So I'm just going to finger press it just like so, and I'm going to fold it in just like so, and then I'm going to attach it the same way that I would normally to the back of the quilt.
So this is just a very simple way of putting the binding on. Since this is a craft project, I'm not going to worry too much about it being sort of the tuck method, but I'm going to get all the way down to the edge of the quilt, 1/4 of an inch from the edge. I'm going to go ahead and cut my threads, and then if you don't know how to get this part of the corner done, you're going to fold the binding strip back up so you have a 45-degree angle, and then fold it back down on itself. So it's going to, the fold's going to match the top and the side is going to match, and then you're going to put it up under the sewing machine and continue to stitch it. And you're going to stitch all the way down, all the way around the quilt this way. You're going to stitch down to the corner about 1/4 of an inch from the corner. Stop, take the needle out, take your machine, lift a presser foot. Now you're going to fold the binding strip back on itself so it's even with the side. Then fold it down so the fold is even with the side, and continue to stitch. And when I get all the way around to the other side, I'm going to trim a little bit past where my hole is, and then I'm going to kind of cut it at an angle and tuck it up underneath so that the raw edges of one side are sitting inside the other side. And then I'm going to go ahead and stitch that edge all the way down so it's nice and stitched. Then we're going to turn it and fold it to flip it to the other side.
So here we go. We're flipping our binding over to the front, just like so. And if you find that you get to this point here and you've got a little bit too much bulk, you can always take your scissors and just trim out the point. Don't trim all the way back to the stitching, but you can trim out the point a little bit so that it folds nicely. You just want to make sure that when you're folding it over right here from one side to the other, that it folds in a nice corner. And as long as you can get that done, so I'm just going to take, because this is small, and just clip these little corners right out of the tip right there, just like so. So it takes the bulk right out of the corner. And then we're going to flip our binding over. And you can flip it over right about to the stitching line, just past the stitching line that you've already made, and put a clip in. And then I like to work all the way around the project before I tackle the corners. And here's where it gets the trickiest. So what I want to do is I want to bring my clips right up to the point there in the corner, and I want to bring my other clip right over to the point in the corner. And then I'm going to show you exactly how we're going to hold this down. Okay, get our little clip out and clip right to the corner. And then my little trick on getting my corners mitered just so is it's either going to go on one side or another. So I like to take a pin, go on here, and just press the pin right up into that point so it tucks everything nice and neat. And when I get that all nice and neatly tucked and I get the point right there coming in at a nice V, that's when I know that I'm done. So this one is almost perfect. And once I know I'm done, I take a little clip and I put the clip right in the V to hold it right there. That one looks like it's going to go together. It's always one corner that gives you a fit. I swear, 3 of them will go together great, and then you'll get onto the 4th corner or something. That's usually when you get, I'm kind of surprised I was having trouble already, because it's usually always the 4th corner. And it's just the way it is. That one looks pretty good, actually. Not gonna fight. And also, don't worry about getting them perfect, because after all, this is a mug rug and it's not going to matter. But every opportunity that you have to practice getting those little miter points in is always a good opportunity. So I would recommend trying it every time you can, just in case.
Practice makes perfect always. But you're just practicing. So now that I've got all of my clips together, I'm going to move everything out of the way and we're going to start sewing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to position my mug rug right where my needle is going to go down right along the edge of that binding, that inner edge of that binding, right where our stitch line is. I'm going to start at the bottom where my binding opening is because I know that's going to be my little tough point. And I'm just going to stitch right along that fabric edge. And as I go and I reach a point where I get to a clip, I'm just going to take the clip out. And you can do that very slowly all the way around the corner. And that's how you keep those really great miters in all of the corners with machine stitching. So it's a great way to practice your machine stitching on something small before you get to a quilt.
Cute is that? There's our little bunny mug rug. Can't wait to try this out with a new mug. Well, quilting friends, I'm really glad that you decided to stick around and see the whole video of how to put our little bunny mug rug together today. I hope if you liked the video that you went ahead and gave that a thumbs up and hit that like button so you let YouTube know that you had fun here today. Also, if you're not a subscriber, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that notification bell so you're notified when we put new videos out. As always, I'm really glad you joined me. I hope you join me again another time, and just happy quilting.